And I apologize to you if that whole section you already know, because you've been writing, you already did dissertation, you already did thesis. I'm sorry to waste your time. But I think from my experience with working with faculty, something concrete, very clear might be helpful. That is the how to write the paper. But now there's another, how to organize the paper. But now there's a whole nother part. And that is how to prepare the manuscript for submission. And this is technical. It's not about your statistics. It's not about your writing. Well, it is a little bit about the writing. It's not about your theory. You know, it's not about your findings. It's about how to actually do the writing. So let me talk about that. So I said earlier, you must identify the audience and the journal before you begin. Begin with the end in your mind. Begin with the end point in your mind. The end point is your article in a journal. So you see that journal in your mind. If you see that journal in your mind, then you're going to know how long the paper should, the manuscript should be, who the audience will be, what style to write it in. So let me talk about these things. So I always use 12-point Roman Times Roman font. Not necessarily required, but the font, you change your font and the length of the paper will change. Yes? You change from 12-point to 10-point. What happens to the paper? It gets longer. But you can't fool editors about this, you know. Because they're interested in the number of words, which you can see in Microsoft Word down at the bottom, right? But I try to use the same font all the time. That way, easier for me to see how long the paper is getting and like that. But if I'm changing font or changing the size, then I can get confused. So it's just my own habit, not a requirement, just recommendation. All manuscripts should be double-spaced, unless the journal tells you to make it single-spaced. I've never submitted to a journal that asked for single-spaced. Every journal I've ever submitted to, which would be about 30 or 40 different journals, has asked for double space. But there might be some that want single. So you have to look on their website because they'll tell you. Right? They may not ask for it, but I always use the insert page numbers function of Microsoft Word. At the top, insert, and then they got page number, and I always insert because I like to see the length as I go. Again, you hear me saying it again and again and again. Length requirement of the journal has a big impact at every step. Each section that I talked about, the length, all go back to what is the maximum length of the paper. So all of these things, from font to page numbers, all of these help to keep you on track. Now, up here I say, use the style required by the journal you plan to submit the manuscript to. What is a style requirement? Style is not fashion. Style refers to certain ways that you write, and I will show you what that means. So, here are 4 common styles. APA, which is American Psychological Association. Chicago style, Harvard style, MLA. I don't even know what MLA stands for, but the Modern Language Association. I've learned something today. Okay, so these are all different style requirements, and if you go onto Google and you just type in APA or Chicago style or Harvard style or MLA style, it will bring up a list of pages that will tell you so much, everything you need to know about writing in that style. I will just show you examples. But my point is, listen carefully. If you did what I told you to do, and that is pick the journal first, then you know what style to write your paper in. Because on the journal's webpage, they will tell you all manuscripts must be submitted in Chicago style or APA style. And let me tell you, it is really unpleasant to write. I write everything in APA because most of the journals I submit to want APA, but not all. And sometimes I have a paper, okay, all written in APA style. And then I'm going to write a new paper, and I say, I'm going to copy and paste the reference list from this paper and start out with in this file, so I don't have to type in all of these references again. I may not use all of them, but I've got them. And then I realize this has to be in Harvard style. It is the worst experience to have to change every reference from one style to another. And the solution to that is
use endnotes.
She says, we use endnotes. That's the solution to it. Because if you use the software program END, endnotes, then you'll have your reference list, your references that you use in your writing entered into endnotes, and you just boop, and it'll change them all into one style or another style. Right? So that's the best solution. I'm embarrassed to say I don't use endnotes. And I'm a real techie. I'm a real tech guy because I've been using computers since 1981, and I have a software company too. So I'm not afraid of technology, but I never use endnotes. But you should. But you should. Sound like your mother or father. I don't do it, but you should do it. Okay, so let me give you. So here's an example of 3 reference list styles: APA, MLA, and Chicago. So you can see each of these is the same reference. It's the same source. It's my paper. Okay? But look how different they are. This one, Hallinger P, with this little ampersand sign, and Heck RH, and 1996 next, in parentheses, right? All of these in small, in lowercase, with a, right? And actually, this isn't even correct. 1 second. It is correct. It doesn't look right. This is actually in italics. This is italics. Here, MLA style, you see no P, must be spelled out, fill it. Right? No ampersand, instead of an and. No date here, instead the date's all the way over here. Right? Quotation marks, which no quotation marks up here. Now here's Chicago style. No Hallinger P, Hallinger Philip, and not Heck. Here we have Ronald H, all right. Here, volume, this actually should be volume 32, number 1. Anyway, they're all different. That's the point. And changing them from one to another is really the worst waste of time. You know? In fact, it's so bad that when I've written an article in one style and it's been rejected, I make my decision about where to send it next partly on what style they require. And if they don't require the same style, I probably won't send it to them because I don't want to go through the whole paper changing all of these little stupid things. Really stupid. Yeah. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go into any detail about this because I'm the kind of person who doesn't like detail too much. And I don't want to it's not the good use of your time. But style is not only about the reference list. Style is also about the headers. The headers, you know, like you've got method. Now, in one style, method may be what we call a main header or main heading. So normally, where do we put the main heading for a section? Where do we put it normally? Centered, right? Maybe it's centered and bold. Maybe it's centered and underlined. Maybe it's centered in capital letters. Unless you know what style, you don't know which one. It's really, 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 in English the word is petty, P-E-T-T-Y. It's really terrible. And there's no logic. No logic. It's only tradition of that style. So you can't analyze it to come up with the right answer. You only have to memorize it. And in some styles, the main heading, results, method, are not even in the middle. In the journal I edit, it's on the left-hand side. When I became editor of the journal, the first thing I did was write to the publisher and say, I don't want to use this headings, this style. Can we change to APA? And she said, no. All of our journals use this style. I said, oh, what a headache. But that's it. So the format of headers, the titles of tables. This is how stupid it is. You get the title of the table. So you've got a table. We don't have a marker. Yeah, we do have a marker. Right here. So, here's your table. Okay? Or is this a figure or a table? A table. Okay. So one style will table 1. Another style, table 1. And then the name. Another one, table 1 has to be underlined. Another one, table 1 has to be in italics. You know, another one that you have to have a period after it, table 1, and then each word capitalized. Another one, no period, and each word lowercase, no capital. You know, it's hard enough to do the research and write the paper. But now, I said to you, your paper will not be rejected because you put tabled up here, but their style requires table here. Your paper will not be rejected for that. But the editor may refuse to finally accept the paper until you put it into the correct style. You understand? So they may say, yes, we accept now, after you make your revision, we accept your paper. But you have to put it in the right style. Some editors don't care if the paper comes in the right style or not. All right? If our journal was Harvard, but you send APA. Maybe the editor says, please put it in Harvard style first. But some editors will review the paper and after it's accepted, if it's accepted, say, change it. And some journals, but maybe only for a famous scholar, if they accept it, they'll make the change for it. Some. That depends on the journal. But all of these things, my point is, these are all things about style, not only the references. So you need to take a quick look, know the style, and write the paper in that style. Also, this is called a citation in text. And as far as I know, all styles require the citation in text to be in alphabetical order. So Jones before when. But some styles don't have a comma here. Some do. So it's all, again, it's all crazy, stupid, but you need to know. So, all citations in the text must be in the reference list at the end of the paper. And don't include any citations in the reference list that were not cited in the paper. Your reference list is not a bibliography. The difference is a bibliography is a general list of references about your topic. But in a journal article, your reference list is comprised only of the papers that you actually cited. So what I do is, after I finish a paper, or maybe before I finish the paper, but when I'm really bored and my brain isn't working very well. No, this is true. I don't write very well in the afternoon. I write well in the morning. In the afternoon, very difficult for me to write something new. So afternoon, I edit, and I might check my reference. If I'm at the end, toward the end of the paper, I'll do a search. I'll go to my reference list, to the first in the reference list, highlight, find, and check every reference to see if they were actually cited in the text. And then I delete like that. Okay. You need a break? I thought you said no break. I think I'm getting tired. Tired. Bad one. For a little while. Okay. Next, how do you submit your paper? Now, this has changed a lot over the years. I recently remembered the first, in my early career, I had one colleague that I used to write with all the time. And he very detail-oriented. What you had to do in those days was, when you submit the paper, you have to make 3 or 4 hard copies of the paper. And you had to send 3 self-addressed stamped envelopes, or 4 stamped envelopes. I don't know. You had to prepare everything for the journal because nothing electronic. Right? Then in the early 1990s, I remember when I went to work in Chiang Mai, I was using email, and I wanted to submit an article to a journal. And At that time, now they were requiring, from the 1980s, had to be hard copy. 1990s, must be on a floppy disk. You have to send the floppy disk. So I wrote by email, I wrote to the editor in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, and I said, sorry, I live in Chiang Mai, and I really don't, Thailand, and I don't trust the mail to send my floppy. I don't know if it will really get to you. Plus, I can send email to you. Why can't I just send attachment to the email? So he let me, no problem. He said, okay. Then in 2002, I was sending to a journal in the UK, and that journal was still very ancient and still required hard copy. But at that time, I already was famous enough that the journal wanted my article more than I want the journal. So I wrote to him, I said, I'm sorry, I won't send you hard copies. And I won't send you floppy disk, but I'll send you email attachment. And he wrote back, he said, but then we have to print it out. I said, okay, the next time I see you at a meeting, I'll give you $1 for the printout. Then, in 2008, they changed to this system called Scholar One. Now, this isn't the only system. There are about 4 now. Different publishers try to do their own. This one was the first. We call online submission. So you go to their website, and then each journal has its own website under Scholar One. I'll show you in a second. But now, other publishers, I don't know, they don't want to pay someone else, or they want to have their own, so they try to do their own. But this is still the most popular one, and I think probably the best. But depend on your journal. The journal Sage is one publisher that also, some of their journals are in here, some are on Sage. Elsevier also has their own system. Springer has their own system, but this is the most popular. So, let's see. There it is, okay. So, yeah, I'm going to show you an example. So this is an example from Scholar One. So you'll see there's a, this is the site for my journal. So if you were submitting to my journal, you would come to this location. How do you know where to go? Well, you went to the website for this journal, and in the instructions for authors, they told you where to go. They tell you to come to this URL. They'll have a link to show you the URL. Then you'll have to log in, and you can see you can create. If you have an ID, you can do it. If not, you'll have to register. So you register, you'll get a user ID and a password. And this is for, I'm going to submit. So it's giving me instructions. So you can see here, it's a website. This is for the authors. And if I wanted to submit a new manuscript, I would click here. And now it's got a series of, what type of manuscript is this? Okay, what's the title? What category? So you just go through all of their questions, filling in the information, and finally, after about 6 pages of these questions, it will ask you to upload your manuscript. So let me jump over there. File upload. Just want you to see how this works. So here it'll ask you to locate your article. So let me go onto my computer and find one. So you'll just go into your own computer and you're looking for the files. So here is, I've got a title page. So I'm going to click open and then select. This doesn't even ask for a title page, so I'm not going to include a title page. So I'll put in the body of my paper. I'm going to just take one table here and click table. I'm going to click a figure. But you would obviously include all of the files for your paper. And now I'm going to click upload. So now it's uploading each of the individual files to their website. Now you may have noticed before when I was looking for those that I had about 7 tables and about 6 figures and so forth, but I'm not going to do all of those. I'm just going to show you the next step. Now, while the computer is doing this, you remember the example I gave you before about the guy who sent an article to my journal about higher education? That guy had to spend all this time preparing, going through all of those questions, 6 pages of questions about his article and all of this, and uploading these and reviewing them. And that's why I said it could take him 1 to 2 hours just to prepare the submission. And then he sends it in, and it takes us a week or 2 weeks to do the initial review of his paper, just to tell him, sorry, we're not interested in papers on higher education. So now he wasted his time, 2 weeks plus the hours prepared. Now he's got to do the whole thing all over again for another journal. So this is why I said to you before how important it is to pick your journal first. And pick it correctly. Okay, now, I had some problem here. I got to do that one again. Now, these are not in the right order, so I need to change the order. Okay, now I've got my files here, and now I'm going to save and continue. Yeah, it's missing all this stuff, but I don't want to go back and do that at this point. See, it's checking to make sure I did everything like a good boy. But I wasn't a good boy. I skipped many of the questions. So it actually will not let me submit until I answer all their questions. But I wanted to show you. Now, it will also ask me to check my file. So now this is one I need to go through and check. that everything came through correctly. I want to check my tables look correct. Check that this one look correct. Then I'm okay. Then it also wants me to check the PDF version. So it will create a PDF file for me. And again, it won't let me submit until it thinks that I have checked the PDF version as well. So here's my article. Here's the manuscript that is being submitted. With the figures, the tables, and so forth. So that is that's the typical. The other systems I mentioned that they have look very they work the same way even if they look different. So depending upon the journal, they'll use one or another of these online submission systems. One thing I haven't mentioned is the issue about your manuscript being blind, B-L-I-N-D. That means blind means that the reviewer should not be able to figure out who wrote it. Unless you're in Thailand, then you want them to know who wrote it. No, I'm joking. But the so that means if I were writing a paper and I would not want to say something like this. In a study that I did last year, Hallinger 2014, blah, 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 blah. In a study the author did previously, and then you put in parentheses, author 2014, so that they can't know who did it. So that's what they mean by your manuscript being blind. That no reviewer should be able to figure out who wrote it. What happens after the manuscript has been submitted? You'll receive a confirmation email from the editor that they received it. Usually, most editors will then, in the next 2 weeks or so, not immediately, but it could be the next 2 weeks, the editor will read through the manuscript himself or herself, just to check and make sure that it seems suitable to the journal. Because if we don't think it's suitable, the topic is not correct, it's too short. Our journal is really 5,000 to 8,000, and your manuscript's only 2,000. And we look at these general issues. If we think it's not suitable to our journal, we'll send back to you with a letter. If we think it is suitable, we say nothing. Nothing. We send it out for review, but you won't get something additional from us. So in my journal, we send each manuscript to at least 2 and usually 3 reviewers. Now, what I need to tell you is the review process is very imperfect. Very imperfect. Most of the time, I cannot tell you how many times, one reviewer says minor, one says minor revision, one says major revision, and one says reject. Now, for the editor, big headache. And the reviews, we ask the reviewers, usually we tell them, please send back to us within 2 months. Sometimes we don't get it back for 6 months. And so the process can be long. what do reviewers look for? Okay, so now you're the one who wrote the article. Now, what's the reviewer, when they read it, what are they looking for? Suitability of the topic. Do I, as the reviewer, do I think the readers of this journal, not any journal, this journal, will they be interested in the topic? Is it an important topic in their eyes? The use of theory, the quality of methodology, clarity of presentation, the importance of the conclusions, quality of communication. So these are all things that they will look at and comment on. And reviewers are really different. Some reviewers, frankly, for some reason, they don't really know too much about the topic. So those reviewers spend all of their time correcting your grammar and your punctuation. You know? But it just varies a lot. Response from the journal. You will get one of 4 answers: accept, minor revision, major revision, or reject. You hope and pray for minor revision. You don't hope and pray for accept, because you're not going to get it. This is the first time. The first time. You might get accept. If you get minor revision the first time, if you respond well, you'll get accept. But very seldom get accepted at the beginning. So this is what you're really hoping for. And this, we say, you can live with it. You're not happy, but you can live with it. But it's pretty normal. This is, I think these days, probably 80% of the articles that are not rejected will get major revision, because the journals all try to raise their standard. Okay. You'll receive an email containing a decision. You'll have the editor's note about what the editor thinks you should do. And then separate will be the reviewer's comments. Now, the editor's note is kind of a summary of the reviewer's comments, as well as what the editor thinks is important. So the reviewers will have lots of comments. You should read the editor's comment first, because sometimes it's not necessary to respond to everything each reviewer said. If you respond to what the editor said was important, that could be enough. And you'll usually have a specified period, usually 2 months, but not always. One journal I submitted to that give you 1 year, but most journals give you about 2 months to respond. Journals publish between 5% and 60% of the manuscripts they receive. As I said before, it depends on the journal. This I already said all of that. Most reviewers, think about it. You get your reviewer, and you get a manuscript to review. If you simply said, yeah, I like this. Good, I think it's pretty good. I think you should publish it. Most people think that they had not done their job. So even if that's what they think, they're still going to, like to find things wrong with it. So don't be discouraged when they have a list that lots of them are going to seem stupid to you. But the reviewer has to write something. You know. The reviewers don't get paid, but they still feel they have to write something. So I said, don't be disappointed at the volume, the number of comments. Many are just filler to show that they did their job. So you have to separate the more important comments from the less important ones, and that's where the editor's own note will help you determine which ones are more or less important. Okay, responding to the editor's decision. Now, I'm going to pass on a piece of wisdom to you. Whether you follow it or not is up to you, but this is really wisdom. My practice is to, when I get a response from the journal for an article, I try to have my revised manuscript back to the journal within 1 week. Sometimes that's not possible because if you have to do new analysis or something, but oftentimes you don't have to do new analysis. But if you do, it can take a bit longer. The reason I said this is wisdom is I've seen with my colleagues when I was in Hong Kong that the tendency when they got the response from a journal was to put it off. It's kind of like an unpleasant thing. Something like smells bad, you know? So you don't want it too close to you. So you put it out here and you hope that maybe as the weeks go by it won't smell so bad. You know, and then you can go and deal with it, you know. But actually it will not smell any better in 2 weeks, I guarantee. So that's point number one. Point number two is, think about it. You've got a research project. It started in 2013. 2013, you planned the project, you did all of the literature review, and you collected data. And by the end of 2013, you had all of your data collection done, and you analyzed the data, and then you took some months to write it up. And then in the end of 2014, you submit your paper to my journal. How many years have you been working on this research? 2 years. Now, 3 months later, I send you a letter asking for revisions. And you kind of wait. Right now I'm busy. My teaching, I'm busy. I do it in a couple of weeks. Couple of weeks, I have to go do this, blah, 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 blah. 2 months later, the deadline is coming. Right? 2 months later, 2 months have gone by. 2 months, now you put 2 years of effort into this. And now you put it off for 2 months? My point is, anything that you put 2 years of effort in, that's so important, and is now 99% complete, why are you going to delay? Why delay it? You're 99% of the way there from 2 years of work. So I don't understand this. And I have co-authors of mine in Hong Kong. One lady, Chinese lady, who I love dearly, but if I leave it to her to take care of it, we had a revision. We got the letter from the editor the end of May. And she said she was the first author. She sent it to me. Said this was the answer, the revisions they want. And I immediately wrote back and I said, okay, I will handle these, but you have to do yours first. Because I cannot do mine until yours are done. I'm ready this week and I'm ready next week, whenever you. Oh, right now I'm busy with blah, 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 blah. That was the end of May. It wasn't until the last week in July. And in between, I wrote her 3 emails. Are you ready? How are you coming along? What's the progress? No, I got this, I got this, I got this. The week before it was due, she sent me the revision. And I said, what makes you think I have time this week to work on it? You know, and why is it that it was only the week before it was due that you actually had time to work on it? I don't believe it. No, I didn't say that to her. But what I'm saying to you, if you think about 2 months, don't you think that somewhere in those 2 months, before the last week, She would have had time? I think so. So my point is that our own attitude, positive attitude, and thinking, remembering that this is the big goal, this is the big bonus we get from all of that work. Get it done, get it out, finish it. That's why I say, respond as quickly as is practical. Don't delay. Because it's something we don't like to do. We don't like to go back to it and have to fix this and do this. No one likes to do it. But that's how you get the big thing for your career. You will, when you revise the manuscript, you can do one of two things. You can turn on the tracking, the track changes. If you don't know what that is, you should find out. Track changes in Microsoft Word, or you can, when you make changes, you highlight, highlight it in yellow. I use the highlight. Not for every little change, but they may say the reviewers had 6 things they wanted you to do. When I respond, they want me to add another section to my literature review. So when I add that section, I highlight it in yellow, because I'm going to send that back to the reviewers. They're going to look at it and they can see immediately what the change was. Okay. You will also write a letter, actually in the online submission. When you have to send back to the editor, you have to go back to the online submission site, upload your new files, delete the old ones, upload new ones, and write a letter. There's a space in there to write a letter explaining what you did to respond to the reviewers. That's here. And then you'll submit that, and they will review it again. If you get what to do when you get a reject, don't let rejection paralyze you. My colleague, I share with you, I had my colleague that I told you I used to write with. We used to make all the copies and the envelopes and send them in. What he did, I have to smile about it now, because at the time when he made his first set, he made a second set of papers and envelopes. I said, why are you doing that? He said, well, if we get rejected, then I'm ready to send out to another journal. But this guy, you have to know his character, his personality. At night, when he goes to bed, before he goes up to his bedroom, he puts 2 pieces of toast in the toaster. Not toasted, but just put them in. So in the morning when he comes down, he just go like that. Then he go back up and take his shower. Finish his shower, his toast is ready. So he always think about his efficiency. But that's what he did. He never worried about rejection. He's always ready to act if he's rejected. Now, to me, too much, too much. But the point is a good one. I never worry about rejection. I get rejected. You'll get rejected. It's part of the business that we're in. So again, I want to go back to what I said before. They ask for revision. Don't delay. You get rejection. Read why. Sometimes you send to the wrong journal. Sometimes you don't have to do too much, and you can send to a different journal. Sometimes you want to take the comments, revise some more, but send it out. But the same principle applies. Once you have that manuscript, that is your big work. So if you get rejected, don't let it sit there for 6 months or 1 year, because it's all that wasted effort. Now it's at the point that you should be able to get it published somewhere. Or maybe you just need to do some more work on it, but this is a lot of work, so don't let it sit there and die, because then you're not taking advantage of your own effort. So this is what I say here. In many cases, a manuscript rejected by one journal will be accepted by another. Now, I'm very experienced, so I can evaluate my work. Right? I was rejected by one journal, and as soon as they rejected, I sent to another, and it was accepted with very minor revision. True. So this is what I mean. You know, if I got rejected, oh, what am I going to do? Honey, why are you crying? Oh, they rejected me. Oh, what are you going to do? I don't know what I'm going to do. But I didn't do that. I just got on my computer, uploaded I had all the same files, went to the Scholar One site for the second journal. You, Roy. Okay. Went to the second journal, went through all the same questions on Scholar One, uploaded all the files, boop, submit, and sat back and waited. And, you know, 2 months later, it was basically just accepted like that. So you know, this is, yeah, see? Don't be like her. Okay. Key points. We don't think enough about our audience. The audience is the journal, and the audience is the readers of the journal. So we write for the journal, and we write for the audience of the journal. We don't just write. In fact, I didn't tell you this, the first article I ever wrote, I gave it to my advisor in my doctoral program, and he said, it's interesting, but who are you writing this for? What do you mean? Well, who is your audience? I don't know, people like me? No, really, I had no clear picture of who I was writing it for. So this is, I have to stress, this is important. Goes back to the same issue I talked about earlier, about in Hong Kong. My colleagues say, they don't want articles from Hong Kong. They want articles from Vietnam, but you have to remember who is your audience. If you're writing for Vietnamese people, they're interested in one thing. You're writing to the global audience, they're interested in Vietnam, but from a different perspective. And you have to, that's your job to make that clear. Here's something I didn't mention. Now, how many of you have had a research grant? Nobody. No research. One, okay. It's really good idea. Now, I don't know the whole situation about research grants in Vietnam. I know they have some because one colleague of mine just wrote, what was it, NAFASTET? NAFASTET has grants coming out. Now, grants are a really good thing. Not only because they give you money, but because they require you to plan. And as researchers, most of our time, we are usually very busy doing what? Teaching. And we don't have time to plan. But if you're going to write a grant, you have to plan. If you don't write a grant and you just do your research, no grant, you just do it. But it is very good discipline to have to sit and write out the grant proposal. So I highly recommend that. I didn't mention this. If you have a colleague who has written for an international journal, getting feedback from them before you send it out can be useful. That's if you have someone who's willing to read your work. When asked to revise, do it immediately. Another reason why I said do it immediately, don't wait, is this. If you get your request for revision and you do your revision quickly, a week, 2 weeks, and get it submitted again, the editor gets it and sends it back to the same reviewers. And your paper's still fresh in their mind. You wait 2 months, or 3 months, or 4 months. I told you one journal said you have 1 year to resubmit. If you wait 6 months or 9 months and send it back, and it goes to the reviewer usually feels, I remember, I saw this before, but I don't remember very much about it. And then they feel a little bit annoyed. Why do they feel annoyed? Because they have to go back and read it really carefully again and try to remember, everything about it. But if they get it back a month later, after they first did the review, now it's fresh in their mind and they just check, yeah, okay, like that. So you actually tend to have a better chance of acceptance when you send the revision back in if it's been done quickly. That's it. The end. So Roy.
So we have 15 minutes for question and answers, please.
Hello, and you speak English very clear.
Very good.
Thank you for that. And I heard a story from my college that when they have to revise the paper, and the problem is that the reviewer, they have a very different comment. And maybe that the comment, the later one is conflict.
Absolutely happened.
Yes. So
When that happens, okay. That happens frequently. One reviewer says, I love the literature review. And the other reviewer says, your literature review is no good. So what you can do is you can contact, I said that there are two things. One, go back and read the note from the editor. Because a good editor will tell you which comments you need to, are more important or you need to address. Second thing you can do if you don't get that in the note from the editor is you can write back to the editor, because you'll usually get an email from the editor with their note and the comments either in the body of the email or attached. You can write back to the editor and say, reviewer number 1 mentioned this. Reviewer number 3 mentioned this. They conflict with each other. What's your suggestion on how I should manage that? And then let them tell you. There's nothing wrong to ask the editor. In fact, the editor should have told you, don't worry so much about what reviewer number 3 said on this point. So if they didn't tell you that, you can go back to the editor. Now, another thing you can do is to when you respond to the points, there are some points that you simply don't agree with. And you can say that politely. You can say, well, the reviewer advised a particular test. Use a different test. and you can talk of it. We didn't use that test because blah, 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 and we still think that this is the appropriate test to use. You can do that. Doesn't mean that you have to change everything to satisfy the reviewers. Okay. Other questions?
So when I write the article, so is it alright if I cite some article from a long time ago? Is there any advice?
Yes. Some, okay. The question was, when you write your article, is it worthwhile to cite papers written, what's a long time ago? And don't tell me 1990.
Sometimes I can come across.
Do you mean 1850? What's a long time ago?
1990s or 1995, 1990s.
Now I really feel old. No, nothing wrong with it. But let me tell you why she asked the question. Because some people, when they write their article, don't have anything. If they were writing an article now, most of the literature, so say for example, okay, this gentleman finished his thesis in 2010. And now he's writing some article from his thesis. And he has no references after 2000, most of his references are like 2000 to 2008. And now it's 2015. And the reviewer gets his paper, and it looked very strange. Why nothing? Then now it's 2015, and there aren't any references here after 2009. That's strange. Did the world stop after? Well, no, he just didn't update his literature review since he did his dissertation. So he'll be. You need more. Your references are too old. That's why they say his references are too old. The problem is not that you have references from 1985, or I cite things from 1950. That was before I was born, by the way. but I mean, you can cite. There are very famous articles in my field from the 1930s, 1940s, 1950s. I still cite. There's nothing wrong to cite them. It's really good to cite them. It shows the reader you know the literature, even 1995. So it's not a problem. It's a good thing. It's a very good thing. As long as you also have up-to-date references. But just to say it again, the problem that he's going to have is that the reviewer's going to say, your references are too old. It doesn't mean too far back. It means what the reviewer really should say is, you don't have enough recent references. Okay? But to me, when I see that somebody's got references in something that I'm reviewing that go back to the 1970s, 80s, 90s, then I know that the writer actually knows the field well. So I think it's a really good thing. Not okay, good.
Excuse me. For example, when I write an article, I use a book to refer, and in my article, paragraph that's similar to a paragraph in that book. Is it okay or not?
Ah, plagiarism.
Similar.
Yeah. Okay. Let me write this. Plagiarism or copying. So, This is a very good question. Thank you for that. So what he said, I'm going to say it very carefully. He said, so if when I write my article, I have a paragraph from a book, and it's similar to what was in the book, is that okay? It's very dangerous. So here are your options. Option number one, which is okay, is you don't make it similar to the paragraph in the book, you make it the same as the paragraph in the book. Is there an eraser? So let me show you. Assume this is your page. And here is your writing. And now you've got a paragraph from a book and you want to quote. Quote. Or quotation is the noun. So now you've got a whole paragraph. Maybe, all right. So this is what you can call an indented block quotation. So I've indented and I made it a block. And then here, I'm going to have Jones, 19, you want an old one, right? Okay, old one. 1990, page 37. Okay? So I've got Jones, 1990, page 37 at the end of this. Right? And I don't need quotation, I don't even need quotation marks here because the rule is this. If it's more than 3 sentences or 3 or more sentences, then you put it into the block quote like this and no quotation mark. If this was just in the sentence, it'd be like this. You put the quotation mark and this, it was just a very short quote. But either way, it's perfectly okay to use it this way, showing the exact, not similar, exact. Okay? So better to use the exact quote than what we call paraphrase or rephrase the quote, the paragraph, to make it similar. Dangerous. Don't do it. You don't look happy with my answer. Why? You're not sure?
Yeah, because sometimes I would like to make an introduction. In my article, introduction is so short. It's just about half the page. So I would like to. I don't want.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. So you don't want to quote. There might be a whole half page and there's some ideas in there. So you have 2 choices. Use some quotation, some short quotation from in there, and then write some more about it. Or you don't have to quote, but you actually put the citation, so you paraphrase, you do some paraphrase, but not similar, but you put in your own words, and then you still give credit to that author, Jones, 1995, or whatever it was, 1990. like that. You still put the citation. In fact, we do that all the time. Even when we don't have quotes, even when there's no quotation marks, we still, at the end of the sentence, put parentheses, and then the people, the other researchers whose ideas, could be one or it could be many, are related to that idea that we just talked about. Is that okay? One more question. Or no more questions? Okay, one more.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It's very interesting and inspired me a lot. Maybe next month I plan to publish my article.
I hope so.
Yeah. But one more question, but I think it not relates so much about the title, the topics of our seminar. But it's very important to me. Yeah, because right now my university, they use the policy that if the lecturers have one article in SCI,
SSCI,
ISI,
yeah.
So they will get the very,
$20,000.
by the China situation, but not so high.
Not so high.
Yeah, just about.
But keep in mind. But keep it. I will let you finish. But I want to clarify one point. In China, the $20,000 was only for publication in that top journal, so difficult to get into. Maybe no Chinese researcher get in there. So you know I don't want people to think in China. I think I go teach in China because you make so much money. No. Go ahead.
If a lecturer have article published in SSCI journal, they will get about almost $700. Yeah, and I know that you mentioned that not all the SSCI article, SSCI journal is quality. It's
That's
not
not
true.
what I said. No. What I said was, I strongly disagree with the policy of giving money because an article is in SSCI, because there are many good journals that are not in SSCI. So just being in SSCI does not make it a good journal, but it's convenient for policy. That's all.
Yeah.
So.
So that's I agree about it. Yeah, opinion. So maybe I will stop here. Yeah, thank you.
All of this is changing, and not only in Vietnam but in the region. But earlier today we were talking about change in higher education in Vietnam, and from my perspective, both as an outsider, but also as a scholar, I think that the change in higher education in Vietnam is coming very much because of the integration of the education system, like with ASEAN. And even the policymakers are not so clear about the impact of their policies. What I mean is, if the policymakers say that you should publish in SSCI journal, and we're going to give you money for publishing in SSCI journal because we want to raise the quality of research, we want to raise the university ranking. What that means is, in social sciences and education, that researchers need more freedom to report their results transparently, because in the international journals, they will not accept, well, this was what we found, but this is what we say. I don't want to say more about that. But ultimately, in the end, the change in higher education, you will not get more articles. I did a literature review in my field of the entire Vietnamese literature in my field. We looked at Vietnamese language theses, Vietnamese language journal articles. And we also had international articles on education administration in Vietnam. And the difference in the quality was like night and day. And in the international theses on education administration, there was much more detail about things that were not working very well. And in the domestic theses and the domestic Vietnamese language articles, even when things were not going well, at the end of the thesis, it all talked about people weren't implementing policy well enough. Now that may work in Vietnam, but if you write your article and you even report some of the problems, but then your conclusion is that, well, everything will be all right if people simply implement the policy better, it will never get published. So somewhere, the freedom to report things as they are will be a requirement if the university, if you are going to be able to publish internationally, and if the university's ranking is going to be able to rise. Because as long as the research is done, as has been done in the social sciences and education traditionally in Vietnam, you cannot get published. Except in Vietnam. I'm sorry to say that, but that's just reality. I hope my visa is not canceled. But so I better stop right there. And thank you all for coming. I know this is Friday afternoon. It's 10 to 5 and the traffic is here, but you stayed to the end, so I thank you for your time. Bye-bye.
So, thank you very much, Professor Hallinger. So, through the reaction from the face of audience, I can show that your presentation is very practical, very helpful, right? Yeah. Right? And also, thank you for your saving the time. I know that you're pretty busy as many groans at the same time, but this time in Vietnam, you can spend the whole afternoon with us and share very practical experience from your experience in publishing and how to write the article. And I wish all of our audience will be more confident in write your article and then publish it successfully as you wish.
Can I try to say? Keep in mind, again, what I said. The word in English that was on one of the slides was resilient. Let me write it. Resilient. Resilient means that you bounce back, you come back quickly, that you recover. So you're resilient, you get rejection, but you don't paralyze. You send back out again, you keep going, because we all make mistakes, and the value of what I did with you today, I hope, is that it reduces your wasted time, that you can be more efficient and then have a higher chance of success. And I passed out my card, so if you have any questions after today, you can contact me by email, don't be shy. And if you get published, then definitely send me a card telling me I got published, and here's what you said that helped me. That would be good for me.
And one more information. The PDF file of the presentation of Professor Hallinger, we will post it on the website, on the column seminar, so you can refer back to it for your reference. And on this very special occasion, in order to respond to your goodwill for this afternoon, IRED have a small gift as a souvenir. So I would like to invite Mr. Giảng Thư Trung as the president of IRED present this small gift to you.
Does he look like my younger brother? My younger brother.
Xin cảm ơn. So thank you all of you and hope to see you for another event in future.